right, so everyone, we've got Larry Sharpe here. Really happy to have you. Larry Sharpe is a libertarian politician. He in 2016 ran for the vice president nomination, I guess is the term we would use. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And very, very nearly got it. I think it was
Only by
47.
32 votes. Not that I'm counting, but 32 votes.
32, damn. So it was very nearly the guy that ran with Gary Johnson. And then you ran in 2018 for the governor of New York. Is that correct?
Correct also, yes.
All right. So one of the first things, because I had a few questions I saw about this. Do you have any plans on running for seats in the future?
Yeah, I think I might be running again for governor in 2022. It looks like it's the right answer because New York State has just recently changed its ballot access. And for those of you who don't know how a third party works, if you spend your time mostly with either Democrats or Republicans, it's relatively easy to get on the ballot, right? As long as your local mob bosses, party bosses, allow you to get on, it's relatively easy to get on. But when you're a third party, states go out of their way to make it difficult for people to get on the ballot. In New York State specifically, the way you can get in the ballot is either by being able to find 15,000 signatures to get in the ballot, which is a lot, particularly when you've got to get out there and do it during the wintertime, or your gubernatorial candidate can get 50,000 votes on the governor's line. I did that in 2018. I got far more than 50,000 votes. And then they decided, oh, we don't like that. So they now changed the rules in the middle of the game. So now they've changed recently that now it's 130,000 votes or 2%, whichever is higher. And if you can't get that, it is no longer 15,000 signatures. It's now 45,000 signatures. They're going out of their way to make sure that the two-party system stays intact.
Oh. That seems pretty shitty.
Most people don't know this, but when it comes to third parties, only Libertarian Party is in all 50 states. Even the Green Party, which is the second largest third party, they're only in about 40 some odd states. The Constitution Party is only in about 25.
So most of our users aren't familiar with you yet. How would you describe your views? What are the main issues that are most important to you?
Wow, that's a generic question. I think as a general rule, we want to do our best to there's so many of them. I mean, I guess the biggest one of all of them, and there are so many of them, is probably the war on drugs. And the reason why I say the war on drugs is because the war on drugs goes out of its way to punish the poor, to punish minorities worse than non-minorities, but everyone gets punished by it. It allows the government to take away our rights. It allows the government to overextend. It keeps people punished in perpetuity. So I think it's probably the worst of them all, and also stops small business owners from becoming powerful. It stops people who would have made money on the drug trade from making money and encourage people to use prescription drugs that assists in making people addicts. So there's so many, but I think that's really the worst one.
Okay, so I'm going to start going towards some of the specific questions we've got here. These are usually all over the place, so it feels like, haphazard. Just letting you know that's usually how it's going to go here. The first question we have here is from Iron. Iron asks, how do you expect corporations to deal with climate change in a libertarian world?
This is a very good question. And the climate change piece becomes very difficult because what we try to do right now is we try to get governments to do the job. And when we fall to let governments do the job, they fail constantly. It's the norm. So we try to get government to do the job. And then once we do that, government then stops other people from doing the job. So what we want to do is actually allow people who are trying to make things work to work better. Now, let me give you an example. That's very generic, I know, but now let me give you some examples of that. One of them is nuclear power. Many people are against nuclear power, so governments have said stop nuclear power. Well, one way to do it is to allow people to use the newer technology, which is a whole lot a whole lot safer than the old technology's ever been. There's new technology now that literally uses nuclear waste as fuel and actually cannot melt down. The government gets in the way of that and doesn't allow us to do that. That's just one minor thing. But the next thing is, once government begins to do it, hold on, people are complaining about my mic. Is my mic that bad?
Yeah, I wanted to let you finish before I brought it up, but yeah, it's having a couple issues. You're a little bit quiet, and then it's popping at certain points.
Hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can instead. Should I join Discord on Chrome instead? Is that the problem?
I don't think so. I don't think that'll make a difference. Most of us always use the app.
Is he using the app right now, or is he on?
I'm on a PC.
Did you connect through the web browser?
I did.
Oh.
Problem. I want to be able to give them. I want to be able to give them the right answer. Wow.
Oh. Shoot. It might be worth. I'm not sure. I haven't had any experience using it on the browser. Really. Does anyone know if there's certain issues with certain browsers?
I mean, Chrome might be a good alternative if he wants to try on Chrome.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna pop on Chrome. See if that's better. Sometimes that can be better. I'm gonna pop on Chrome right now.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me better now?
That sounds good to me now. How's that sound for other mods?
How's that better?
Still sounds about the same to me.
I think, yeah, it's a little bit quiet. Just everyone, if you want to turn up on your end locally, and then yeah, I think the other issue, like, it's not so much the volume from what I was seeing, it was the popping sound, like, when it came in and out a little bit. But
how about this now? Is this better?
Not too much of a change.
Guys, I wish I knew what to do here. I don't know how to act. How about this?
I'm sorry. Shoot, I'm not sure. My best guess would be actually try downloading the app from the site. It might take like 1 or 2 minutes to download and then log in, but I think that would work better on the app itself.
Try one more idea, real quick. Okay. I do have it on my phone. Maybe better put it on my phone. Hold on.
Okay.
Phone would probably be a really good option. I don't know if
Right now.
Ease of use.
Is it the input or output volume?
So for him, he would have to up his input volume. Output volume is just like what you're hearing.
All right. Can you hear me now?
It's still quiet.
Yeah,
it's a little quiet, yeah.
Is it any better?
It's all about the same.
I don't know what to do. Let me see if I can. Let me try even simpler. Hold on.
All right. Is he connected through the phone? It doesn't seem like he's like left the channel and rejoined or anything.
How about this?
Ooh, that's perfect. There we go.
Oh, that's really.
Okay, there we go.
All right, 1 second. So sorry, I turned you up a little bit on my end. So let me just fix this for myself here before we continue. Okay, testing.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Does it sound good for everyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
Good for me.
All right. Awesome.
There we go. Okay.
Oh shoot. What question were we on?
You're talking about global warming and
Yes.
climate change. Yes. So I think what we want to do, to the best of our ability, is have government do what it does sometimes do well, which is encourage. Right? Government should be encouraging things versus trying to control them. Let me give you a quick breakdown of all the times that centralized control has worked. Finished. It doesn't. It constantly fails again and again and again. The way we're going to get success is by allowing local people to pop up with amazing ideas and having government facilitate those and to put them into play. I made nuclear power as just an example. That's just one. But there are people who are figuring out now how to clean the ocean. They're figuring this stuff out now. But they're being stopped by government to go, oh, no, don't do that. It doesn't follow our rules. It doesn't work well. Instead of us saying, that's amazing, let's keep supporting that. Let's make that work. But as we put it through the system, all that happens is people get angry, people rebel, small business stops, monopolies and oligarchies win. It all becomes about the big dollars only and not about actually fixing things. Remember what government does well and what big business does well. What government does well is it services people. It services problems. It doesn't fix problems. It goes out of its way to service them. So, oh, there's a problem. Great. Here is money or here is something. What does big business do? Use government to create oligarchies and monopolies. Very good at that. That's their job. But what about small businesses? All of the best, biggest ideas, almost all of them, I shouldn't say all, but almost all of them, have somehow come from small businesses and people who actually care about the problem. The goal is we have to start to have the government assist and encourage smaller groups of people to come up with local answers that we can then encourage and explode on the bigger stage. And that is happening, but I think actually slower than it should be happening.
Okay. So our next question comes from Smoke. Smoke wants to know, what do you think of Bernie Sanders?
I think Bernie Sanders really gets a lot of people to love him because one thing he is over so many other politicians is he really is consistent. That guy knows what he wants, talks about what he wants, talks about all that stuff. It is really insane how well that worked. So he's really good at that. The problem is, I think Bernie doesn't understand at his core that bigger government is simply going to look. If you create, as for example, Medicare for all, it's not going to be Medicare for all. It's going to be VA for all. And the VA is a disaster. I'm a veteran. It's a disaster. There are some pockets of amazingness. Absolutely, there are some pockets that are awesome. But those pockets that are awesome are fighting the system. Whenever you create a monopoly, it doesn't work. Monopoly is bad. Everyone would agree with that. Government monopoly is still monopoly. It doesn't work. However, I get why people love him. Many reasons, particularly if you're younger. Why do I say that? If you're younger, if you're say 30 or under, as an example, you were raised in an environment that was heavily about your feelings and your self-esteem, heavily based on that. If you were raised by the average parent in the past 30 years, this is a movement that was really important and its intent was amazing. But what it wound up doing is creating a bunch of parents who spent a lot of time telling their kids how awesome they are, but then they wound up being either helicopter parents or bulldozer parents, which means they weren't allowing their kids to fail, to fall down and get back up. They weren't training kids resilience, and they were giving them the lie that says, if you pass your tests and go to college, there will be, without question, a great job for you when you get out. And for many people, that was true. But for most, it wasn't if you're around 30 or so right now, because you graduated somewhere around 2008, 10, 12, 14, 16, in that area. And when you graduated there, there's been almost no recovery from the Great Crash, except in cities. So what happened when you got out? You didn't have what you thought you were going to have. You feel like you were lied to. And guess what? You were. Not just that, you got $50,000 or $100,000 in debt, and you don't have that great job. You don't. So I would get why you would feel that anything that's socialism would be a good idea. Why? Because it's redistributing wealth that you didn't get, that you were promised. It seems like people cheated you, and they did because they lied to you. They told you that if you follow these rules, there'd be something great for you. You look around and you see your friends and family on social media, and their avatars are having great lives. You think everyone's having a great life. You have a culture that has virtually no ownership, heavily about rental and monthly notes and Netflix and rent and not many people owning things. Yeah, I get where socialism and Bernie would seem good. The reality of it, though, is that's not really the answer. The answer is exactly what I was talking about when I was a kid. When I was a kid, and I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, in the South Bronx, not the best neighborhood, and poor. So what does that mean? That means, how did my family get out? They got out through entrepreneurship. They got out through using money, using their own money and resources to get out. They didn't rely on government programs. If you look at the people in my old neighborhood who relied on government programs, most of them are still there. The people who didn't got out. When I was a kid, no cabs would come to my neighborhood. So we had gypsy cabs. Now we have Uber. And of course, most cities are trying to stop Uber. But that's not the answer. Using your own goods, your own property to make money is a good idea. It's how people get out of poverty and bad situations. My parents became part-time DJs, believe it or not. So they got how we saved up money to move to the suburbs. That's how we did that when I was a teenager. So I get why Bernie Sanders is doing what he's doing. I understand why people like it. But in reality, it's a bad idea. It's not going to work. And if we follow the Bernie model, you're going to see in about 10 years, whatever that number is, I'm making that number up, but something like that, people saying, oh, we don't have enough. We don't have enough. We just need more. We just need more. We just need more. The problem with government is they always want more. If you're a Republican, they use the word invest. If you're a Democrat, they use the word fund. But either way, it's the same thing as just give more money. And that's the problem.
All right. Our next question comes from Bait. I think this will hit close to home. Bait asks, how would you lower electricity in New York since given Con Edison has been raising prices without increasing the quality of their services?
Yeah, this is another thing that goes back to the idea of monopoly, right? Monopolies are bad, right? They don't work. So I'm going to try to break monopolies to the best of my ability. But look, in certain cases, you're not going to. So here's a better way of doing it. How can you actually lower rates? I'll tell you why. Why in the world, since Con Ed in New York, for those of you who don't know, Con Ed runs the power in New York City. Con Ed's a monopoly. Why in the world is Con Ed advertising? They're a monopoly. It's not like we have a choice. So instead of the literally thousands of vehicles they have, why aren't we literally allowing those vehicles to become mobile ads? Yes, I said it, mobile ads. Why in the world aren't we allowing other people, maybe in a given neighborhood or in a given borough or county of New York City, why don't we allow local diners and local businesses to put their ads on these trucks and buses for very low cost? Even if it's $1,000, $2,000 a month, whatever that might be. Right now, if you get a mobile truck to go around, it's probably about $3,000 a month, give or take. So you give them a small amount. You give them maybe $1,500, give them a break so they can do that. Well, if you've got 2,000 trucks, $1,500, that's a lot of money every single month just in one borough. Take that money, and since it is a government monopoly, the government can dictate where the money goes, take that money directly to lowering prices. Immediately, prices are lowered. While we're doing that, let's get some competition in there to lower those prices. But initially, right away, do that, and that goes directly to the cost for the average person, lowers their price immediately, and no extra taxpayer money. Why? Because the people who are spending that money are already spending that money on other types of advertising. Now they go here instead.
All right. Burning Cold asks, what are your views on the current situation with regards to financial burdens placed on college students today versus the actual value derived from a college education?
Yeah, it's sad. We've been told a lie for at least 30 years, and that lie's been the only way to success is to go to college, and that's simply not true. Now, it is a way to success. Don't get me wrong. There are many people who should go to college, and I think that's amazing if they go to college. But we should be told it's the only way. What's happening now, and I can speak for New York State. I'm unsure if it happens in anyone else who lives in other states, but I can tell you what's happening in New York State now for sure. I'm assuming it happens in your state. Since most schools rely on either state and or federal funding, that means they have to be judged, and they're judged generally by two separate ways. Number one way is standardized testing. Number two way is the percentage of kids who go to college from high school. Neither of those two things help a kid who wants to be in the trades. In fact, they're against it. In New York State, guidance counselors literally say things like, don't go to BOCES, and for those who don't know, BOCES is our trade option in New York State. They say, don't go to BOCES, that's for the dumb kids, that's for the stupid kids, that's for the bad kids. They discourage the kids from going to anything that any type of trade they want to go to. They discourage them. Of course they do. Why? Because that means the kid's not going to focus on his statewide test or his standardized testing. He's not going to focus on getting into college, which is how the vast majority of these school districts get their money. So the idea that we have to force kids into college is number one. It's a problem. In fact, our governor here, Cuomo, said a college education is essential. It is not. It is an option for kids who want to go to college. As we keep pushing kids into college, we're actually making college less valuable. And that's been true for at least a decade already. I think it was Goldman Sachs. I'm sure someone will correct me on Discord, but I think it was Goldman Sachs who did a study on this about 10 years ago and actually said, going to college, unless you're going to either an Ivy League school that has amazing networking value afterwards, or a specific specialized school for whatever job you're going to, like to be a lawyer or a doctor, that it actually is better if you don't go to college. Because when you get out, you'll have so much debt, it will affect your decisions that you're going to make. It'll affect what you're going to do, and it'll actually slow you down tremendously. You'd be better off actually not going to college, getting the experience, and then taking that experience and going to college later once you decide what to do, or maybe even not, because you've been able to move up the chain of command enough to where it's no longer required. So I think the idea of us having so much is because, one, the government backs the loans, right? Of course, there's nothing bankers love more than government money. Boy, they love that. So once you decide to say, I'm going to back it with government money, I mean, the prices are whatever they're going to be. What you want us to do is two things in my perfect world. And it's difficult to do, I know. But in the perfect world, you've got to somehow negotiate all the debt that the kids have right now. I should call them kids because half these guys are in their 30s and 40s and 50s. So that Americans have right now. You've got to somehow negotiate that debt down and somehow have the government do some type of assist in paying it off, because it's the government's fault that you had to go into that debt. The government should have never done two things. One, guarantee that loan, and two, not allow you to go to bankruptcy. Both of those two things, in my view, were immoral. It made sure that prices would just keep going up. It made sure that kids would just not care. It made sure that kids would just do it and think they believe the hype. Once the government says something's good, generally speaking, people begin to believe it. When the government says something is important, people tend to believe it. So the government said this is critical. The government said it's okay. And literally millions of kids have believed it. And now they're 5 or 6 figures in debt. It's affecting decisions they're making. It's a really bad idea. So I would like the government to fix this. I don't have a problem with the government fixing a problem that the government made. And this is a government-made problem, and the government should fix it.
All right, so this next one is a hot button issue. I've seen a bunch of thoughts on Trump's recent actions.
You're going in and out.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Trump's recent actions in regards to Iran?
Yes. Look, everyone knows I'm libertarian, and libertarians are by default anti-war. We are against war. We are not, as people will say, isolationists. That's exactly the opposite of what we are. We are non-interventionists, which means we don't want to be fighting other people's civil wars. That is a terrible idea. We should not be fighting other people's civil wars at all. It's their war, their country. Let them deal with it how they want to. But Larry, if we leave the Middle East, then people will die. They're dying now. Larry, if we leave the Middle East, then there'll be chaos. There's chaos now. We have not fixed it. We have not made things better. We shouldn't be there. That's my overall view of the Middle East. Now, specifically on what Trump did. Trump fell into the same trap that every other president has since, I don't know, maybe Bush, Clinton. And that is thinking that we can bomb our way out of problems, thinking we can kill our way out of problems. We can't. We can't. But they attacked us, we have to attack back. Can't. It is a bad idea. But he went one step further. And that is the first time that he actually ordered the death of a uniformed member of a government's actual military without a declaration of war. He made a step that went even further. All of them are bad. I don't like us bombing people in general. I don't like bombing people. But this is even worse. The reason why this is worse is what he's just said is it's okay if we randomly choose to assassinate people. That's a really bad precedent that is going to come back to bite us in the future sometime. I don't know when, but it's going to come back to bite us. And I don't want to be the guy who says, I told you so, because I'd rather be wrong. But I don't think I'm going to be wrong. It was a terrible idea. He should not have done it. And we should pull out of the Middle East as soon as we possibly can.
All right. We've gotten this question a couple times. Is taxation theft?
I love that. Taxation is not theft, which makes my libertarian people angry. The reason why it's not theft is most people believe and they believe this in their heart, that taxation is the only way to a civilized society. And if you believe that, that means that you consent to being taxed. And if you consent to being taxed, it's not theft. Consent means not theft. And they've done surveys on this many times. If you guys think I'm making this up, please go ahead and do your own homework. All over the place, you can see that people have said, oh, I'm not taxed enough, I'm taxed just right, I'm taxed too much. But very few people say they don't want to be taxed. But not just that. It's not theft. Why? Because you are getting something. You're getting something you don't want, right? The government isn't just stealing our money. They're actually giving us horrible wars, a war on drugs, a war on terror that I don't want. He's giving me all kind of horrible stuff. So what is taxation? It's extortion. It's basically saying, buy this, so I'm going to put you in jail. But you're buying stuff. They're not just taking our money. They are literally just telling us, buy this stuff or I'll put you in jail. So it's, at worst, it's extortion. But until the American people understand there are other ways besides straight taxation to actually get the services that we want, it can't be theft.
All right. Our next question comes from user Berkarov. Berkarov asks, how far would you go in decriminalization legalization?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. Was that up regarding drugs?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. The user asks, how far would you go in legalizing drugs?
Yes, I think you have to go as far as your community will allow you to go, right? There's simply, while in my perfect world, all drugs would be legal, the reality of it is the nation, the state is not going to accept that. And to try to make that happen right away is just not going to work. We're going to wind up making sure that nothing happens. Look how hard it's been just to get cannabis decriminalized. So in my perfect world, we start with cannabis, decriminalize it completely. As I said before, regulate it like onions. That's what I talked about in New York State as a joke. But I would take that, right? I would like it to be start with cannabis, because once it starts with cannabis, you will see the entire landscape of drugs begin to change. Less people will use harder drugs. Some will still, don't get me wrong, but less people will. You will also have a decrease in people using opioids. Opioids themselves are not bad, but when you only have opioids as your only choice, that's bad. I want to allow people to use a cannabis option. I think when you see that people use cannabis to get off of drugs, once you start doing that, you will find that the entire landscape will change. When a landscape changes, you grab the next thing and you decriminalize that. You grab the next thing and you decriminalize that. You decriminalize as long or as far as your community will accept. That's what I think you should do when it comes to drugs.
All right. This next one's a little bit of a plug. Red Argyle, what's the name of the...
Are you there?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can, yes.
Okay. Red Argyle asks, what is the name of the Larry Sharpe Snapchat?
I don't know if there is a Larry type Snapchat. I'm not sure if there is, Adrian. My team puts all my social media together. I don't actually know if I don't think I have a Snapchat. Do I? Maybe. If it is, it's called Larry Sharpe. That's what all my stuff is called. So if I have one, it's called Larry Sharpe. I have Larry Sharpe Twitter, Larry Sharpe Instagram, Larry Sharpe on Facebook. Larry Sharpe, Libertarian is my Facebook page. But I also have the Sharpe Way, which is my video podcast. And it's the Sharpe Way on Facebook, the Sharpe Way on Twitter, and on Instagram.
All right. Our next question comes from Bosnian Developer. They ask, what are your thoughts on the future of socialism?
Yeah, well, this is the issue, right? When people are afraid individually, they make bad decisions. It's what they do, right? If I'm afraid, I'm very apt to make a bad decision. When groups of people are afraid, we cry for one of two things. We cry for either a strong man or we cry for socialism. That's basically Bernie and Trump, right? Bernie's socialism, Trump's a strong man. We cry for either of them because we're afraid. So we say, oh my God, things are bad. I don't understand. Let me have one or two of the other, one or the other. And what winds up happening is either way, it ends up in oligarchy and or dictatorship. That's how it works. So the future of socialism is what it's always been: oligarchy and or dictatorship. That's how it always works in the long run. That's what winds up happening. Unless we realize our issues and begin to back off. And many of the Scandinavian countries have actually done that. Some of them have kind of backed away from their socialist ways and kind of backed off a bit. But it's easier when you have more of a homogenous society. I think it's Finland and Japan, if I'm not mistaken, are the most homogenous societies on the planet. So it's easier when you have countries like that versus countries that are much more diverse, that have a lot of people coming in and coming out, a lot of people with different backgrounds, age levels, everything mixed. It's more difficult to have socialism as a government. Now, to be clear, I'm not against socialism for individuals who want to create their own socialism within their own world. An example would probably be the Amish, as an example, or Buttzes in Israel. Voluntary socialism is wonderful. Many of us do it often. We join church groups, civic groups, we join hobby associations, professional associations, and many times they're very much basically socialism, right? The person who's in charge, who the people who are in charge, take our money and give it to whatever they think is appropriate. And I have no problem as long as you decide that it's voluntary, as long as you can opt out, right? I can leave the Amish if I want. I can quit my civic association or my church if I want to. So as long as it's voluntary, I'm not against socialism. I'm against the idea that you can't get out. That's the problem, right? That is my worry. Once there's no opt out, then there's a problem. I was talking to a young lady who said she was a communist, and I said, "Great, good for you." I said, "Why are you a communist?" She said, "Well, because I think that everybody, should get like a house." And I said, "That's awesome. I like that. I think they should also. It's amazing." I said, "What happens when whatever the house is you don't like? You're unhappy with that house, or someone wants that house, or something like that?" And she said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Odds are cops come and make the decision for you. That's what's happened every other time that we made these rules. Every time some people with weapons come and decide what you're going to do." And she said, "Oh, I don't like that." I said, "Me either. I don't mind us voluntarily joining these associations, but once there's no way out, there's a problem, because it will always wind up with violence. That's how it works. And if you really want to see how socialistic societies have actually worked non-voluntarily, it always ends in one way: a whole lot of state-sponsored violence. That's how you keep socialism going in all these companies. A lot of state-sponsored violence, consistent, massive amounts of state-sponsored violence.
All right. Next question comes from Subsonic Camp. They want to know, do you think the U.S. should decrease the military budget?
Without question. Oh my God, yes. But there's a problem here. Now, I want to be realistic about it. Of course they should. But many people don't know one of the biggest reasons for the military-industrial complex is it's a massive jobs program. There's a lot of people working to build out weapons, build out uniforms and boots and all kinds of things that we need for our military-industrial complex. So to just end it is going to be difficult. You've got to start with something very silly, which is start opening up markets with people who we're fighting against, right? You might say, "Larry, how can we do that?" I know why. We've done it already. Where? Vietnam. Vietnam's a perfect example. We spent 10 years fighting in Vietnam. At least 1 million Vietnamese killed, 60,000 Americans killed, plus at least 250,000 broken in some way, shape, or form. No way it was that successful. We dropped more bombs on Vietnam than we dropped on Japan combined. Left, absolutely. And then once we left, after we lost that war, 20 years later, they were trading partners. That's the example we should set for the Middle East, Cuba, Korea. Insert bad guy company here. Yes, bad guy. Bad guy country. I'm making air quotes. It doesn't matter which country it is. No matter what, pull out like we did Vietnam. Don't fight back. They're not going to chase us. The idea that they're fighting over there, so they won't fight us over here, is complete garbage. Never true. Never happened. Totally imaginary. We do that. Eventually, over time, they will become our trading partners. As you begin to just pull out, you only have to have 3 parts of the military. That's all we have to have in today's world. Only 3. Number 1, you do have to have a nuclear presence. You have to have nuclear weapons to ensure people don't nuke us. Mad during the Cold War worked, and we have to have that. I hope we never have to use it. You need to have it for deterrent, number one. Number two, you've got to have serious cyber resources, which we do not have. The Chinese are actually beating us. Terrible idea. We need to be working cyber. Cyber is the way we shut countries down now. That's how they shut us down. That's how we shut Iran down in the past. Cyber is the answer. You've got to have huge ways of doing cyber defense, and of course the fear of cyber offense that will stop people. But Larry, what if people want to invade us? Great, shut down their energy grid. Great, shut down their factories. Great, shut down all those things, right? Shut down those things so they can't function. But Larry, they'll invade us. No one's going to invade us. This is also a fantasy. We were scared of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all those people. ISIS and Al-Qaeda. ISIS was bigger than Al-Qaeda. And at ISIS's absolute tip top, the biggest it was, there were more New York City cops than ISIS fighters. Why are we scared of ISIS? I have no idea why. Are we scared of Al-Qaeda? Why were we scared of them? They weren't going to invade us. They have no Navy, no Air Force, no nuclear weapons, nothing. They've got at least 5 million other Muslims around them who can't stand them, Muslim military who can't stand them. They have to go through Europe to get to us with nuclear weapons. Why are we scared? So we should absolutely stop building more tanks. We haven't had tank battles since the Gulf War. Why are we still having tank battles? And that was insanely one-sided. Last time we've had big tank battles was like World War II. This doesn't happen anymore. So instead, stop with the conventional warfare, cyber, and a third piece, special forces. We've got to have special forces that can go in and take out people who are the people who are not state-sponsored people, like the Osama bin Ladens of the world, people like that. So we have to make sure we have the most. We already do have the most powerful, but we always put more money into that type of thing.
All right. Our next question comes from American Legend. He asks, what taxes, if any, would you want to change or get rid of?
It's difficult to say that, right? Because when I ran for governor, I didn't heavily talk about lowering taxes. And there's a reason why. And I know some people, either Republican or Libertarians, will be mad at me, but I'm just being very forward. You can't lower taxes realistically without lowering spending. If you just lower taxes, all you do is one of two things. You either shift the burden to someone else to pay taxes, right, which is still bad, or you increase debt. Both are a bad idea. Both are a bad idea. So I actually don't want to just lower taxes. I want to change how we raise money. I want to change how we spend so that we can begin to pay off our debts. I hope we can, Jesus, can stop our deficit and then begin to lower taxes. If I could get rid of taxes, it would be the income tax. But I'm unsure we can right now because of what we make from it. We would have to, in some way, shape, or form, change how we raise money or change our spending. Otherwise, all we'd be doing is increasing our debt even more. Unless we just plan to default, in which case, who cares? And end the income tax and default, which I don't think we want to do.
All right. Our next question comes from Moonly. He asks, do you as a libertarian agree with conservative, liberal? Sorry. Moonly asks, do you as a libertarian agree more with conservative or liberal counterparts?
I think it's pretty evenly split. As a general rule, if you don't believe in force, I'm with you, right? If you're someone who says, Larry, I am super conservative, I'm the conservative guy, and I go, great. Do you believe it is the government's job to make our society more conservative and to enforce your will? If you go, yes, then you're a Republican. But if you say, no, I don't think it's the government's job, I think it's my job, who I am and my example and my works and my community to make the country a more conservative place, you're with me, we're libertarian. No worries, as long as you don't want government force. If you say, Larry, I'm super liberal and I think everything's awesome, I think it's the government's job to make our society more liberal and to enforce your will. If you say, yeah, you're a Democrat, good for you. If you say, no, Larry, it's not the government's job, it's my job, through my works, through my community, through my example, to make society a more liberal society, you're libertarian. I am with you. The goal is, the key is, do you want to use government force? Look, I live in New York City, so clearly, most of my friends and group around me are Democrats. More of them are liberal than conservative, but I get along with both. Because when you're saying, I want real prison reform, I want bail reform, I want to stop putting brown people and black people in prison, I'm with you. And that tends to be Democrats, right? When you say stop spending all the money, lower taxes, well, that tends to be more conservative. I'm with you. Let's do that. So I think it depends upon at what point do you say government should force? When government should force, I'm not in.
All right. User James Stewart asks, what is your opinion on Columbus Day?
On Columbus Day, I don't know. It's a day off. I
So,
don't know. Does that matter to somebody? I don't know.
some people believe that we shouldn't be celebrating it as Columbus Day because he did some really bad things, to put it quite simply, and that we should instead have Indigenous Peoples Day.
Fine. I actually don't care
Okay.
at all. I don't care. Make it whatever day you want. Fine. Indigenous People Day. I know here people in New York often called it Italian American Day. Remember that was a thing people did. I'm sure. Whatever floats your boat, man. I'm good. This is not a big issue for me at all. Whatever you think. Is many. I guess why I'm not that concerned is many of these things that people talk about like that, people are doing it because they want a virtue signal. And I'm just not. If it makes you feel good to do that, please do that. Call it whatever you want. And I'm happy to celebrate it any way you want. I don't celebrate Columbus Day at all in any way. I don't go to work. That's it. That's what I do.
All right. Our next question comes from Drunk Canuck. He asks, Larry, what does the Libertarian Party need to do to start getting voters to vote for a third party?
Yeah, it is very hard to do. I know I've played the game. It is very difficult. But if you see what happened in New York State, for those of you who don't care about the Libertarian Party, this isn't a big deal for you. But for those of you who do, in New York State, we haven't had ballot access in 40 some odd years. I got us ballot access in 2018, and then 2019, we had 7 victories. That's amazing. 7 victories out of having 0 victories for literally decades. And the way I think I did it, and this is my opinion for others, is I stopped talking about things I was against and for, and I started coming up with actual answers for people's problems that tended to be libertarian leaning. And what I found out often is that when I would give people my solutions that were real solutions, they weren't always perfect, but they were solutions that people actually thought, oh, this guy must be whatever they were. If they were Democrats, they somehow was Democrat. If they were Republicans, they somehow was Republicans. It's what they did constantly. And the reason is I didn't just go around going, liberty, freedom. No one knows what that means. People would say, I have a problem. I'd give them an answer. If you've ever watched a left or right politician talk, here's how they talk. What do you do about education? We're going to make education better. Great, how? By making it better and working harder. Great, how? By working hard and making it better. That's all they say. They don't actually give you an actual plan to fix anything. I actually talk about an actual plan that makes sense. And it isn't about more money or more taxes or more work. It's about opening up you to have more options and more choices so that every plan I came up with was one that had no extra taxes, gave us more options, and gave better or equal or better options for the poor. And when I'm doing that is what got people to. Literally, we only got 16,000 in New York State in 2014. And 2018, we got 100,000. Massive change because that's what I was doing.
All right. Sorry. Next question comes from James Stewart. Stewart asks, since you're in New York, what would you do about the anti-logging zones in the Adirondacks? Adirondacks? Is that saying it right? Anyways,
Yeah.
Called Forever Wild.
Yeah, Adirondacks. Yeah, the issue up there, it's the North Country, and for those who don't know New York State, most people who don't know New York think New York is New York City. And I get that because we are the largest city in the country, and the movies are all here, and I get that thought process. But more than half of New Yorkers don't live in New York City, and there's parts of New York State that are very rural, mountainous. We have massive canals, rivers, lakes. New York has a whole lot of stuff in it, to include a lot of forest area in the Adirondack Mountains and in what we call the North Country. So the problem is we want to control that through government-sponsored, state-sponsored organizations. This goes back to what I was talking about. When we have a state-sponsored organization, its goal is only to do one thing: to try to keep the beauty of the Adirondacks. And while that's important and valuable, it isn't the only thing. We have to have an organization that says, not only do we want to keep it beautiful and wonderful, but we also want to make it to where the local people can benefit financially from it. And that's a very tough balance. But the reason why it fails so much is these organizations only have the one issue, which is you've got to make it safe. So it's an organization that only can say no and that can't say yes. Therefore, what does it always do? Say no. And whenever you want to be safe, you go to what I can't stand, which is zero tolerance policies. Everything's a no. Just stop it. Moratorium. Everything stop. No, the answer actually is, let the local people decide what they think is best for their environment and begin to find a balance between them being able to make money and survive, take advantage of their amazing environment, and saving it for others. And that's hard. And that's why people don't do it. Because you don't have an organization that says, did anybody make any money off this? No. Let's make sure. Let's make sure that we can have that balance. We can also make money, because when you have state-sponsored, here's what happens every single time. Big businesses will always lobby state governments and then take over these areas. So when there is anything that has to happen, it's a big business company that takes over those areas consistently. I'm not about giving big business even more. I want local businesses that have the best opportunity to survive. Now, someone might say, well, yeah, that sounds good, but won't local people screw it up? Yeah, and don't big organizations screw it up too? Lots of people screw things up all the time. But if I have a choice, I'd rather be in a smaller level, so maybe we can actually fix it and maybe learn from it, versus it being massive, and now we've got billions of dollars of problems, no one cleans it up, and I've got a horrible site sitting in my state that no one ever cleans up, that now is unusable.
All right. We've had questions here from a couple users asking, what are your thoughts on just putting these questions together in a lump? Transgender rights.
Did you say transgender rights?
Correct.
Maybe they don't understand that we are libertarians, and everybody gets to be who they want to be, when they want to be, how they want to be. They literally did I think it was State and Country, State and County, I think, which is a New York State paper online, and I think also physical. They actually went through all the campaigns in 2018 to see which one was the most diverse. Mine was the most diverse. Now, they said this, not me. They did their homework. They said it, not me, most diverse. And I had no quotas. Why? I'm a libertarian. I don't care who or what or when you are. If you can do the job, I got you. I'm in. And I believe, yes, I had at least 2 people who were trans on my entire team. My team was very large and was across the country. But my policy team lead was actually a trans woman. So I have, the funny thing is, if you look at the Libertarian Party and Liberty Movement, we don't treat trans people or gay people, anyone from the GSM community, which for those you don't know is gender and sexual minority community, even sex workers. We don't treat anybody differently. We don't treat them better. We don't give them special quotas or anything. We treat them like anybody else. And that's how I believe. Trans people get the same rights as everybody else. No more, no less. Everyone gets the same rights all the time, period, no matter who you are. And if you want to be called something, fine. I'll call you whatever you want to be called. All good. I'm in.
All right. Our next question comes from American Legend. American Legend asks, what are your views on the current situation in Virginia in regards to the gun laws that are being proposed? Do you have any opinions on guns overall?
Yes, absolutely. I am a proponent of the Second Amendment 100%. I think it is a wonderful idea. I'm happy we have it. I'm glad we have it. And I think the attacks on it are a bad idea. And this makes many people on the left angry at me. They go, why do you want guns so much? It's not that I want guns. I don't own a firearm. I live in New York City. New York City is very anti-gun, and I live here. But it doesn't matter. I don't get to decide what other people want to have to defend themselves. I don't get to decide that. They do. Should people have AR-15s? Yes, absolutely. If you want one, go ahead. If you don't want one, that's okay. Larry, it's dangerous. So are lots of things. Cops kill far more people than people with AR-15s. Not even close. Not even close. Cops kill far more people than anybody with an AR-15. Not even close. So you only want cops to have guns? Are you a minority? Is that what you want? I'm going to pass on that one, right? What if you live in an area where when you have to call the cop, and I'm not joking when it's the cop, and there's one cop for 2-3 towns, and if he's eating dinner, it's going to be an hour and a half by the time he gets to you. You know what? No, thank you. You defend yourself the way you want to defend yourself. It is not my decision or my place to stop that. You might say, well, Larry, guns are, bad and terrible. I'm going to give you something in New York State right now. New York State, just about a month ago, there was a stabbing in Rockland County here in New York State, where a guy attacked a bunch of Hasidic Jews. I think it was one of the days of Hanukkah. I don't remember which one it was. But he comes in and he attacks people. And the guy who stops, the guy by the name of, I forget his name right, Yosef Glick. He's the guy who stops him. He then throws a table at this guy. And our Governor Cuomo, who is one of the most anti-gun guys in the world, puts this guy out and says, look what a hero he is. And, he's such a hero. Awesome. Amazing. I would ask him, what would he have said if that guy, Glick, had pulled a firearm instead and shot the guy? If he had shot him the way the guy in Texas in that church shooting, maybe only one of those guys would be in the hospital, not 4 or 5 or 6. One guy who has permanent damage. No. If you want to defend yourself with a firearm, you should be able to. Absolutely. And the idea of having sanctuary counties or sanctuary cities, I'm all in. Awesome. Hope they follow it here in New York State.
All right. So, for some reason on the internet, one of the hot button issues is circumcision, and some people think it should be made illegal. Tom asks, Tom would like to know, what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny that people are concerned about that kind of thing. I feel like that's really more of a cultural issue. So I don't know why. I'm not sure if it should be considered, what's it called, genital mutilation. I get the phrase right. I'm unsure, to be forward. It really isn't something I've thought about much. I haven't felt that it was a big deal. I know lots of people who think it's bad and people think it's good. People who do it and people don't. I don't think it's a big deal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm off on this one, but it's not something I've talked about much because, to my knowledge, and I'm happy proved wrong, to my knowledge, it doesn't stop the function or feeling of the male like female genital mutilation does. So I don't know. There are cultural issues, and I understand.
All right. User Entropy asks, would the U.S. Be able to, sorry, 1 second here. Would the U.S. be able to prevent an incoming ICBM from hitting its target by shooting it down before detonation?
At the moment, the skills that we have, I think, remember my numbers right, I'm sure some of them, I think it was 1 in 20 actually works. The anti-ballistic weapons right now are not very good, getting better. So I think maybe if we sent enough up, I guess we probably could. If it was just one ICBM coming in, I believe just because we have enough of them that we probably could stop it, is my assumption. Because it's like, if I remember the analogy, it's like shooting a bullet with a bullet. So it's difficult to do, but we're getting better at it. I'm not sure. Is that a fear that we have? Do we think an ICBM is coming? I don't know. I don't know that's an issue. I mean, who has ICBMs? Is Russia going to nuke us? If they were going to, wouldn't they have already done so? I mean, they've had ICBM, 40 years now, give or take? So I guess, but I don't know if it matters. I don't think it's going to happen. The only defense that we have right now against an ICBM is the person knowing, or the group knowing, that if they drop that ICBM and they shoot it at us, their culture is at an end. They will be destroyed completely. There's no doubt that if any nation fired an ICBM at us, that we would absolutely respond by devastating the So I just don't think that was going to happen.
Okay. Let's see here. Next question we got. Actually, before I get to this next question, for everyone here, if you want to ask a question yourself, I know you guys all hate my voice. Just write VC at the beginning of your question, and we'll call on you to ask it. So the next one we have here, there's a couple different questions asking what your opinions are on gene editing or cloning.
This is a hard one. It's very difficult that for us to ban cloning, because if we ban it, we can only ban it in America. So someone is gonna clone somebody. I mean, it's just gonna happen. Plus, if I'm wealthy and I think that cloning will get me my my new heart that I want, they're gonna wind up cloning it. I mean, this is gonna happen. But I honestly think it's gonna sound crazy. I actually think cloning is not that big of a deal, because by the time that we can actually accurately clone humans, we'll probably be able to grow from our own cells, grow the pieces that we need that somebody who wants a new heart, new lung, new liver will want. It will actually cost too much time and money to raise a clone, when you could simply instead just say, hey, grow my new liver, grow my new heart, grow my new lung, insert thing here. I actually don't think that cloning is going to be a big deal, except when I'm assuming you mean human cloning. It's my assumption. I don't think human cloning is going to be a big deal at all, because the idea of cloning someone, it's not going to have any actual real application, right? Why would you want to clone yourself when you could just grow the piece you need? Are you clone yourself because you love yourself and you even if you cloned yourself, you wouldn't look exactly the same. That's not how it works. And you wouldn't be the same person because you'd be raised differently. That's not how it works. So you're not going to have an exact copy of either way. You're going to have someone who has similar genetic makeup as you that you're going to be creating. You still got to raise the person. It's still a human being and all those things. So I get why people are banning it. I'm not against banning it, but I don't know if it really even matters. I think this is much more science fiction than it is reality.
All right, let's see. Next question we've got here is from Nikolai. Nikolai asks, can we ever have a nuanced enough approach to intervention in the 21st century?
I think we can, absolutely. And I think the nuanced approach is relatively simple. Relatively. I mean, nothing is simple in this regard, but it's relatively simple. And the concept is, one, did the group of people, which it's very rarely anymore, it's usually a group of people, the group of people actually attack us? If they did, how do we punish that group of people? The example I'll give you is 9/11. People always throw 9/11 in my face constantly. They attacked us. Who is they? Well, them. They don't know who them is. Al Qaeda? Was it ISIS? Saddam Hussein? Was it Taliban? Who the hell knows? And we're always bombing something. In reality, it was 18 people who fought Al Qaeda behind Osama bin Laden. So what should we have done? Very simple. Taken our special forces and gone after Osama bin Laden. That's it. No one else. No invasion. Every single group of special forces we had on the planet should have been right going after him. What does that mean? Well, what if the Afghanis protect him? Then we go in at him, and if the Afghanis get in our way, then they got in our way. They shouldn't have gotten our way. That's the nuance. Don't get in our way of getting the guy who attacked us, and you'll be okay. Get in our way, there's going to be collateral damage. So that's what I'm saying. If we do that, we'll have a much better way of handling the individual players who aren't national players. What about people who are national players? What about like Iran, Afghanistan, all national players? Awesome. Here's the answer. Trade with them. And the only way you go to fight or any type of aggression is if they are physically somehow blocking, attacking, holding hostage our people who are trading. That's it. They're not doing that. Let them go. If you don't want to trade with us, don't trade with us. We have to be able to make sure that we have a good enough system to where people want to trade with us. If we do that, we'll be fine.
All right. Our next question comes from Bird Lawyer. Bird Lawyer asks, what are your thoughts on Antifa? Do you think they should be labeled as a terrorist group?
This is hard for me. And the reason is there's so much hype over Antifa. I have people in my world who tell me Antifa is the end of the world and they're going to take the country down and the world's ending. And I have people tell me Antifa is just trying to stop fascists. To be full with you, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. The problem is I've never met any Antifa people, at least not knowingly. I've never seen them in action, again, at least not knowingly. They've never come after me, again, at least not knowingly. So I don't really know. It's a hard question for me to answer because there's so much hype on both sides. So I don't have a good answer. I wish I had a better one. I just don't. I don't know.
All right. Our next question comes from the user Hope, and he wants to ask this himself. Hope, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, go ahead.
All right. What advice would you give to any political newcomers or those considering taking political science as a major?
The number one thing, get on a campaign. That's no matter what. Get on a campaign. Everything else is talk, theory, thoughts. Get on a campaign. If you want to make real change, get in a third party campaign. If you just want to understand how things and get into power, get on a major party campaign. But just get on a campaign. It's just anything for college in general, right? College is nice for theory. It's great. It's good to know the theory and the rules, but you need to get down and dirty. Remember, most of the people who are in college today, most colleges, and this is gonna make some of you angry, most colleges suck. All their stuff is at least 5, 10, 20 people who haven't been in the field themselves. How do I know that? Because I teach at colleges. They actually call me in to teach because the teachers don't know what they're talking about. So they call me in to teach. I've taught at the graduate level more than once at Ivy League schools because they're like, oh, our guys want to do research. We need somebody who's actually been in the field and actually grown businesses, been in the office of a public company, knows how things work to come in and teach. So the same thing is for politics. Get on a campaign immediately. Knock on doors, pick up the phone, get as close to the campaign manager and or the candidate as you possibly can so you see how this actually works. Because there are a lot of moving parts to a campaign, a lot of moving parts to working with somebody who's in political office. And remember, people who win campaigns build teams, in office, and most of the time, those people keep the people in their campaign and bring them into the office when they win. So you also want to make sure in a campaign so that when you be that intern inside the actual assemblyman or congressman or mayor or governor's office, you're that guy or gal. I cannot overemphasize experience over college.
All right. User Jordan would like to know, what are your thoughts on anarcho-capitalists in the Libertarian Party?
I'm one of those rare guys who's a relatively mainstream. I mean, I ran relatively mainstream. I tend to do a lot of mainstream things compared to most libertarians. And I still love my radicals, my ANCAPs, my anarchists. I still love them all. I think two things are important in this regard. Number one, and this comes specifically for the most purist anarchists that we have. If we throw out the anarchists, and many mainstreamers or pragmatists do them out, I'm not one of those people. If we throw them out, our movement will become either Democrat light or Republican light. That's going to happen. We need the more anarchists, we need the more purists to make sure we are always pointed in the right direction. We are pointed towards a voluntary society, and that is the overall goal of our movement. The overall goal of our movement is a voluntary society. We're nowhere near there now. We've got to point ourselves in the right direction. At the same time, there's another piece here. People get the liberty movement from different people at different times. Wherever you are in your life, there's a certain piece that will pop up and go, I get it. I get it. And that might be someone who's screaming, burn it all down. Or there's a t-shirt I saw recently, it said, legalize recreational cocaine. Now, for someone they're gonna be like, that's perfect. And for someone, that's gonna turn them off. There's no wrong or right message. Everyone gets it in a different way when they get it. The guy who got me was Gary Johnson. And Gary Johnson was not a radical. Gary Johnson was an anarchist, but he's the one who got me. I feel like I'm much more, actually, more radical or an anarchist than he is now. And he brought me in because at that time in 2012, that's the guy that I could hear. I couldn't have heard an anarchist at all in 2012. I would have not have heard that person. Now I don't mind. So I'm not against them at all. I'm glad they're part of the group. I want to be part. We are the biggest tent party, the biggest tent movement there is. That's why we fight so much. For those of you who don't know Liberty Movement, we keep people who are very left and very right all in the same group. People who are middle of the road, all in the same group. The key piece is we don't want government control. But you may be personally very conservative, very liberal, same group, which means we're going to fight. And we do. We get angry at each other. The difference is, if you're a Democrat or Republican, that argument ends in, there ought to be a lot of people like you away. We don't agree that. We don't argue that way. At the end, it either is you're a jerk or you're an ass. That's one. Or two, you're not a real libertarian. That's how our arguments end. Never with force.
Okay, so I've got to ask a follow-up question there. Should they have to bake the cake?
It's a great question. In theory, no. In practice, it's nuanced. And let me give you the practice and the practical reason. This is a cultural issue. We have to realize, and for you pure libertarians realize out there, we literally have had hundreds of years of state-sponsored segregation in our country. We had apartheid in half our country for 100 years. When you add that piece, you can't simply say that. So here's how it works. Here's the right, in my view, here is the right answer for that. And that is, if someone puts a product into the market, whether that is online or in their store, and someone walks in and says, I want to buy that cake, you must allow them to buy that cake. So you're Jewish, and the guy with the swastika comes to the store and says, give me that cake. You go, fine, Nazi bastard, give me the $20 to the cake, get out of here. Now he then says, hey, Jewish baker, you have to put on that cake, Heil Hitler. At that point, that is now service that you are giving, and you know who your client is. You may say, no, Nazi, take the cake as is, or get the hell out of my store. Now, I know people who are Jewish might go, that's horrible, that's bad. I know, but if you don't accept that as true, then you have to deal with the issues of, you have to deal with the cultural issues of people literally being treated like they weren't human beings. So that's a nuanced answer. I know it is. But if you don't want to serve certain people, no worries. Don't put that out into the market, into retail market. If it's online, if you sell cakes online, you realize that if you're a Christian and you can't stand gay people or whatever, if you're that kind of Christian, you hate gay people, when you start your online bakery, gay people might buy your cookies, and you get that. Now, if someone says, hey, customize my cookies and put gay people are amazing on it, and you're a Christian, in my view, you can say, no, I'm not going to customize those cookies, but I put those cookies out there into the market, anyone can purchase them. And I know that's not perfect, and so don't get mad at me, but that's my view. I think that is the right way of dealing with this issue when you also take out cultural issues into this world.
All right. Next question here. This one comes from Carrie Sean. Carrie Sean asks, hey, Larry, what do you think about the coming currency crisis when people realize the Federal Reserve's never going to be able to normalize interest rates or shrink their balance sheet?
Yeah, this is a big deal. And it's going to be a shock to most people. For those of you who already know what the Fed is, you get it. But to realize most people don't. A lot of libertarians always yell things like end the Fed. I'm not an end the Fed guy. I'm an audit the Fed guy. And I'll tell you why I say this. I do a lot of teaching. Part of what I do in my day job is I'm a consultant, and I teach leadership, and I teach marketing and branding and sales. And one of my clients is a New York City agency. And during a break, there's some guys in the room, guys and gals in the room, and these are all, again, educated, licensed professionals, and they're talking about 2008. And one of them says, hey, I'm so glad we have the Fed because in 2008, they saved us. I never talk politics while we're in class, but during breaks, I may sometimes, if they ask me, sometimes I know I ran for office, that'll pop up once in a while. So I said, hey guys, do you know that the Fed is a private bank? Every one of them, over 20 people in that room. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I said, do me a favor, Google it. They Googled it. All of a sudden you hear, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, that entire room didn't know the Fed was a private bank. So then I said, do you know the Fed can just magically make money? No, it can't. Google it. Boom. Oh my God, yes it can. Why do I tell you this story? I tell you this story because most people don't know the Fed's even a private bank. Most people don't know the Fed isn't helping, it's making things worse. Most people don't know that. So how about we just say audit the Fed? And here's the funny part. We can't audit the Fed. It's not a government organization. So once we say audit the Fed, people are going to realize, oh wait, we can't just randomly audit the Fed. Oh my God, it's not actually a government organization. And then what will begin to happen? This will get out there and people will begin to know it. The first thing that has to happen with the Fed is people have to know that it's a private bank, that private bankers are making a killing off of us. Once we do that, now we can make the change.
All right. Next question here comes from Suyu. Suyu asks, what are your opinion on abortion? Sorry, what is your opinion on abortion?
Sure, absolutely. This is a tough one for us too, because there are the majority of libertarians pro-choice, and our platform is much more of a pro-choice platform. But there's a chunk of libertarians who are pro-life. I actually put myself into the idea of saying I am anti-abortion. And why do I say that? I don't want women to have abortions. I don't. I want there to be less abortions. At the same time, I don't want to use force. So I can't pass a law, and I don't want to pass a law because it doesn't work anyway. And we see that in Ireland, right? In Ireland, they actually went back and decided that now abortion is legal because they saw what was happening. What's happening is a general rule, wealthy people were just flying to England, wealthy women were flying to England to get abortions, and poor women were suffering. When you make abortion illegal, what you actually do is punish poor women. That's what actually happens. I don't want to punish poor women. What I want to do is allow more options for women who are pregnant. So what I want to do is I don't want to make abortion illegal. I want to make abortion obsolete. And how do I do that? Well, it's not overnight. Neither would making it illegal be overnight. But the first thing you want to do is what I want to do is I want to make it easier for people to adopt. Now in New York State, that's very hard. Across the country, it's very hard. Let's make it easier for people to adopt. Second, let's make surrogacy legal. In New York State, it is not. What does that mean? What that means is right now there are literally thousands of New York families who would happily pay for some young woman's medical expenses and pay to have that baby happily to the baby off her hands. Happily, voluntarily, with no one being unhappy, everybody being happy, easily doing it. We can't in New York State. I want it to be legal in New York State. But not just that. Why isn't contraception all over the counter? Let it be over the counter. Have a less chance of people getting pregnant in the first place. How about that? But more importantly, I have an idea. How about I just talk about it as I do? I don't want women to have abortions. And I say that. And I hope they will think differently and not have them. But what I get from people is, look, Larry, there are some women who are having abortions no matter what. Yeah, I can't stop them. I can't stop them. It's impossible. All I can do is hope that they will begin to decide to not have them. But not just that. Imagine if we would, all the people who are pro-life, if we had spent all that time, energy, and money that we spent trying to overturn Roe v. Wade, and instead put all that time, energy, and money into, and I'm not making this up, into artificial wombs. Imagine if we had artificial wombs right now. If we had artificial wombs, then abortion becomes obsolete. Take the baby out, artificial womb, have a nice day, sign over your rights, off you go. Off you go. Life is good. We can have technology solve this problem. The reason why we don't solve the abortion problem is twofold. Number one, it's a wedge issue. And the two parties love the wedge issue. I'm pro-life, and they say I'm pro-life all day long. They don't do anything to change anything. They make no attempt to change anything. They just yell I'm pro-life, and conservatives rush to them and go, see, that's my guy, that's my gal. No, you're being fooled, my pro-life friend. You are being fooled. That person's going to do absolutely nothing to make anything different at all. Nothing. They're just using you so you can vote R versus D, and you're falling for that. Please stop. But the person, I'm pro-choice. They're doing nothing at all. Nothing at all. So this is just a wedge issue, so I don't fix it. But not just that. For those people who are pro-life, if we push these issues, what winds up happening is pro-choice begins to be seen as pro-abortion, and pro-life is seen as anti-woman. When that happens, you lose. This is a bad idea. The right answer is to make abortion obsolete and unwanted. The best defense against abortion is women not wanting and choosing to not have them.
All right. Our excuse me. Our next question comes from Iron. Iron asks, do you think black people face systematic discrimination in America? If so, how would you address this issue?
Wow. That's, to me, is like asking, is the sky blue? Of course. Of course. You can't erase 200 years of slavery and 100 years of apartheid in 50 years or 70 years, and you can't erase it. Now, I want to be clear. This is not, and I'm using this pun on purpose, this is not a black and white issue. It isn't. And this is on purpose. It's not a black and white issue. Things are far better for people of color than they've ever been. There's no doubt. Far better. But still nowhere near equal. And the biggest culprit has been government. I know people get upset. But government, we need government to help. No. Government created apartheid. And then when apartheid was finished, government created a war on drugs. The war on drugs in the past 40 years has done more to destroy the black family than anything else and everything else combined. Everything else combined. Now, without question, if we could, when we get rid of those two things, we can begin to heal. But without that, we can't heal as we should heal. We simply can't. We can't just create, and this is what we have been doing, creating more and more protected classes. What I've literally heard is this. We had, we had quotas and they didn't work, so we need more quotas. Wow, is that crazy? We've had affirmative action, it didn't work, so we need more affirmative action. Wow, that's crazy. This is a terrible idea. It's like saying, I've been burning myself and it hurts, but I haven't healed yet, so I should keep burning myself. No, we have to find a way of saying it's over, it's done, here's our goals. There has to be a goal for this. Is the goal? Let me go back to a very important issue that happened after the Civil War. The concept of 40 acres and a mule. That concept was an amazing concept. What an amazing concept that was. It was the idea that we would give black people, former slaves, what they had lost more than anything wasn't just their freedom, but also was the ability to pass down wealth, create and pass down wealth. That was a critical aspect thing that they had lost that so many others had. They lost that. So 40 acres and a mule is a way of saying, here is some wealth that you can now have, and you can now go to, and you can now, pass down to your friends and family and to your everything else you want. You can pass it down if you want to. Great concept. Didn't happen. Didn't happen because of Andrew Johnson. Terrible way it didn't happen. And we've never gotten that back. You want to make things better, you've got to turn the poor communities of black and brown communities away from government trying to help and more to that 40 acres and a mule. And here I'll give you my best example I can give of this. If you look prior to about 1970, at any way you want to look at the black family, any way you want to judge the black family, whether you dollars coming in, education level, out of wedlock birth rates, insert way that you want to judge the black family in any way you want. The black family was going up and up and up. The 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, up in every way. When did it stop? Really, even through apartheid, it was still going up. When did it begin to go down? War on drugs. War on drugs. That happens, government steps in. First thing it does is it creates the welfare state. Second thing it creates the war on drugs. Those two back to back destroyed the black family. But not just that. Now you've got a situation where the black family, the black community itself, look, if you know the black community, then you know that there's division within the black community. It created a situation where you have a chunk of black people saying, pull yourself up in your bootstraps, and that's all it is. I did, which is absolutely not true. All the others will go, look, I just want to get my check. I just want to get my check. Government owes me to get my check. Also not true. The reality of it is, if you want things to get better, you've got to get the black community to pull itself up with help from the government, but not through the idea of here is a check every month, but instead through here is how we get you to grow. And one example of that you find in New York City. This is government assisting in a way, but it's not government check. It's government giving contracts out to a lot of minority-owned businesses. It is helping. It's making the black community more entrepreneurial. It's making the black community grow on their own. That is something that's actually working. I went all around. Did I answer your question? If I didn't,
I think that I think that answered it. Next question here. Geez, time flies. I can't remember how long ago this was, but there was the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which, as I understand, was related to and initially started over the removal of Confederate statues. What are your thoughts on the removal of Confederate statues?
Yeah, this is a great question also. The reality of it is all of those statues should simply be sold. That's it. Don't take them down. They shouldn't be on public property. Sell them off. Don't tear them down. Don't cover them up. Sell them off. If you care so much about your history, awesome. Put a bunch of people together, grab some money, buy them, put them in your front yard. Good luck. You can keep General Lee in your front yard if you want to. Awesome. Or get a private museum, put them there. Awesome. If you hate General Lee so much, great. Get them together, buy it, and melt the goddamn thing. I don't care. Whatever you want. These should not be on public spaces. They should be on private land. Just sell them and let the people take them, do whatever they want with them. If you want to have General Lee in your front yard, good luck. Good for you. You want to take him and have a burning ceremony, awesome. Melt it. Not my issue. The idea of us of fighting the way we're fighting over it is silly. Sell them off. Done.
All right. And also related to that, we've had a question. Do you think that radical or extreme ideologies are on the rise?
Absolutely. If you look at the beginning of this, the real beginning of this, believe it or not, was 2008 in Obama. That was the beginning of it. Now, please, compared to today, he's not radical at all. But if you look at what Obama represented in 2008, Hillary Clinton, in theory, should have won, right? In theory, this is a theoretical. Hillary Clinton should have beat Obama in 2008 in the Democratic primary. But Democrats were asking for something that was not the norm, that was not establishment. And you can see that. Democrats were asking for something that's not establishment. They were asking for it. So, and they got it, right? I mean, Obama beat Hillary in 2008, and we as a country elected someone that we thought we would never ask. We would never, vote in, but we did. So I think beginning of 2008, the country has been asking for something different. Now, it doesn't mean in masses, but big chunks have. 2012 comes, same thing. 2016, come on, Trump. Oh, my God. But look at the Democrats even. Bernie, if it wasn't for the Democratic infrastructure, Bernie would have won the Democratic primary in 2016. It would have been Bernie against Trump. And Bernie might have beat Trump. Bernie was very popular in 2016. And why do I say that? The Bernie bros, right? When Bernie lost the primary, about a third of Bernie bros packed up and went to Trump. And you might say, why in the hell would they go to Trump if they want Bernie? The ideas are completely opposite, different people. They are, but the similarity was, if you're a Democrat, Bernie was the rebel compared to Hillary. Now, whether you guys like or don't like Hillary, what almost everyone would agree with is she's the poster child for establishment. I mean, she's the establishment candidate, obviously, right? But Bernie wasn't. So in 2016, Democrats who wanted something other didn't have Obama anymore. They went Bernie. He was the other. He was the rebel with the Democratic Party. Trump, the Republicans went clear rebel with Trump. So all of a sudden now we want more of it, and we want more rebels. What America is realizing, sure, is the system's not working for the average American. That's the common thread through everyone who's running. It's not working. It's not working because it isn't. 20 cities in the United States are 80% of all new jobs in this country. There has been no recovery since 2008 except in cities. Drive through some of these poorer areas. I've crossed the poorer areas. I've seen how many of them are collapsing everywhere. Everywhere. It's not working. But left and right, my swamp is better than your swamp. That's not going to work. There has to be a third party. And I've asked this last specific regarding this. Think about November. Either Trump wins or he loses. If Trump wins, what are most Democrats going to believe? Oh my God, it was the Russians, it was the bad guys, it was something else. If Trump loses, what most Republicans believe? Oh my God, it was the Ukrainians, it was whatever. They're going to do something too. Each side, regardless of who wins, is going to be angry and think they were cheated. It doesn't matter who wins in that regard. Which means, no matter what, half of our country is going to believe that we have an illegitimate president. That's a problem. The only answer I see is a third party. The only answer to change is a third party. We've been playing this Republican-Democrat bounce back and forth for what, 40, 50 years now, however long it's been? No, it's not getting better, guys. It's getting worse. So yes, I think people are asking for anything, and they will take radicalism over the same old thing because they know the same old thing isn't working.
All right. So I know before we started this AMA, I asked you if there's anything you didn't want to talk about, and you said there's no off topics. You're open to anything.
Yep.
Now, I don't want to get too controversial here, but
I don't care. Get it.
do pineapples go on pizza?
No. I'm a libertarian in everything except for that. I believe in no force whatsoever except for that. If you have pineapples on pizza, you are by default, just if I catch you with it, if you apologize, lifetime in prison. If you do not apologize, summary execution.
All right. So our next question comes from Hope. Hope wants to know, where do you see us in regards to the future of space exploration and colonization?
Yeah, there is a huge problem with that right now. And the problem is people don't see the value in it, and it's expensive. Government is getting in so much debt. It's too expensive. I remember years ago, I'm not a big fan of Newt Gingrich at all, but he had a plan to put a moon base, have a colony on the moon, and people teased him for it. And I thought, there's lots of reasons to get mad at Newt Gingrich that had nothing to do with this. This one was actually a good idea. Why is it a good idea to put a base on the moon? Because of all the technology that we'll have to get there. Think about this. If we put a base on the moon, we've got to figure out how to keep our bones strong on the moon with that amount of gravity. Whatever that will take will assist us in bone healing here. Will help people who have that kind of disease for bones. It will help people in healing their bones, whatever that technology is. We're gonna have to figure out how to deal with the radiation that's on the moon. That does not have an atmosphere to block that radiation. Whatever technology that is gonna help us here with radiation and things of that sort. So all these things will assist us here. That's what our original space program did, and that's what the next one will do. The problem is people can't see that, and the government obviously can't do it because they're too much in debt, and they want to, and it's too much time bombing 7 countries. So how to do that? So what should happen? We are going to have to rely on like SpaceX and others, and that's not easy because to enter that field, you have to have billions of dollars. It's a huge barrier to entry. And second, it's dangerous. Who the hell is going to insure somebody who's buying rockets into space? It's dangerous and expensive. But to be forward, it's probably the only answer. If we don't do that, if we don't allow our American private sector to do this and do it well, is what I guarantee you, the Chinese are going to take over. because they don't care how much money they spend. They don't care how many people they shove up into space. They're not going to have that type at all. Without question, the Chinese will take over. They're already beating us when it comes to cyber, and they're going to beat us when it comes to space too. We're going to do something. So we do have to do something for space, but there's something else that's crazy too. We should go to the moon and to Mars because it's exciting and it gets kids to want to go into science, right? I've taught at Yale and at Columbia, and what I found is a lot of smart kids want to be bankers. I'm not against bankers. I'm against all our best kids wanting to be bankers. That's a problem. I want our best kids to do all types of things. I want our best kids in nonprofit, in banking, in marketing, in space exploration, in science, in education, in everything. And they don't jump into science if it's boring. They jump into science if it's exciting. So if all of a sudden we're going to the moon, it's exciting. Our best and smartest kids are going to jump into that, and that's important.
All right. Our next question comes from Nikolai. Where was this one? Nikolai asks, what would Larry Sharpe do in a situation where he is responsible for the response to a domestic attack on the U.S. proven to be orchestrated by another state?
Domestic attack orchestrated by. So I'm assuming like there's a bombing and the Iranians did it, something like that is my assumption.
Sure.
Okay, so it's fine. So yeah, now look, if there is an attack on the United States that we could prove for some other country, that's why we have what I was talking about, which is cyber, and why we have special forces. Never, let me be very clear, never am I going to think invasion's the right answer. Why in the world would let's say Iran decides that, I don't know, bomb Grand Central Station, and they bomb Grand Central Station and kill 1,000 people. That would be horrible, terrible. But do I want to now invade Iran? No. 9/11 hit and killed about 2,900 Americans. And what happened? We lost 7,000 soldiers, sailors, and Marines fighting in 2 stupid wars. We lost twice as much, plus we at least 100,000 broken sailors, soldiers, and Marines in a war because 3,000 Americans died. No invasion. What's the answer? Either cyber attack or special forces attack. So the people who actually did the attack, we catch them, we punish those who orchestrated it, whether that is literally, as we did with Laden, going into a sovereign nation and taking them out. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with invasion. But if we need to go in and say it's their Secret Service or whoever we decide it is, go in, blast them out, pull them out, either put them on trial and or execute them, totally fine with that. Because that teaches the other people. If we do it, the response is only one thing. It's not the invasion that they want. It's not the proxy war that they want. It's just them dying. All they get is death. That's all they get is death. Nothing else, or imprisonment, whatever's the appropriate answer for whatever crimes you've seen they've committed, right? Whether execution is appropriate or whether prison is appropriate, whatever that is, right? Give them whatever that is. But once we invade a sort of proxy war, we've helped them. Us being in the Middle East is one of the best recruiting tools for Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Us bombing Yemen, this just helps them. Proxy wars are what they want. That's what I will not give them. I will not give them proxy wars. I will not put my Marine sailors and soldiers in harm's way, except in a targeted strike that will get those people right back. Their reward for their attack is not the proxy war they want or the recruiting tool they desire. Their reward is death and or imprisonment, whatever is appropriate in that world.
Okay. Next question comes from American Legend. American Legend says, earlier you mentioned the U.S. shouldn't get involved. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Earlier you mentioned the U.S. shouldn't get involved with civil wars in other countries. However, in the case of Hong Kong, lots of protesters are asking for the U.S. to help. Do you think we should get involved, and to what extent?
No, and no. Are you prepared? That's a good question to ask yourself. Are you prepared to fight a proxy war with China? I'm not. Are you saying you want to put Marines in in Hong Kong? I don't. Not at all. Look, let's be forward. I feel horrible for the people. I do. I feel terrible for them. I wish that the UK had, somehow found a way to keep that area for them. But look, the UK basically stole that land from the Chinese at gunpoint in the first place, which is terrible, and it's definitely better than China was. But that's not our issue. That's not our issue. That's a Chinese issue that the Chinese and Hong Kong people should deal with. I feel bad for them, but I'm not prepared to send my sailors, soldiers, and Marines to die for it. Not gonna do it. What am I gonna do? I'm gonna instead do an embargo against them or sanctions, because that always works. Never works. Doesn't work. And we've had sanctions for how long? For how long? North Korea for how long? Doesn't work. Hasn't worked yet. They still hate us. It doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. The idea that it stops them or hurts them, no. All it does is it hurts their civilian population. That's all it does. You want to help them out? Open up even more trade with China. Open even more trade with Hong Kong. What's going to change China and China to where they'll stop being as bad as they are is when their middle class gets tired of the government's boot. That's what happened in our civil war. I'm sorry, in our revolutionary war. When their middle class gets tired of the government boot, that's when the Chinese government falls. Whether that's 1 year from now or 1,000 years from now. I don't know when that is, but when that is, it will happen. It will happen. And here's the worst part. Since they're a state-controlled media, whatever we do to them, their government will say it's us. And they'll believe it. How do I know that? Look at Iran. Look at all those things. No, does not work. Allow the open trade to the best of our ability. Do not invade. Proxy wars are a bad idea. Tell them that we love them and give them. That's all we can do.
All right. Our next question comes from Suyu. Suyu asks, what should the government spend more on?
Nothing.
All right. Easy answer. I think it's the fastest answer we got. Trickster asks, if we are to have an immigration policy, should we focus on letting skilled people in or letting less people in?
Yeah, this is an issue, right? The open border versus closed border. It's not one or the other. I think we can have a border and still have vibrant immigration. And the answer is we follow what our past was, which is Ellis Island. If we want to have a better southern border, building a wall is a terrible idea. Why is it a terrible idea? Because when you build a wall, only people who are well-funded get over that wall. Who's well-funded? Mobsters, drug dealers, terrorists. They're well-funded. They get over the wall. Now, the regular person can't get over the wall. So now we ensure that only bad people get over the wall. Not just that, we also ensure that the smugglers and human traffickers now are even more valuable because they're the only way you can get around the wall. You've just made their business even more valuable. Terrible idea. Instead, just build 2 Ellis Islands on the borders, on the southern border. Just 2. You want to know the border if you want also, if you have a problem with Canadians, doesn't matter. But put Ellis Islands on the border. How do we do that? Okay, grossly simple. 2 Ellis Islands, no walls. You don't need any extra walls. No worries. I'm not going to spend a dime for that. Not a dime. Because once you have an Ellis Island, now people in the country go to the Ellis Islands, right? If you're a bad guy, you don't go there. You're going to hang out in the deserts and try to cross anyway. But now we have our guys on the border right now looking only for bad guys. So the odds of a family dying of starvation or dehydration in the desert go away because they'll go to the Ellis Islands. Will some people die in the... Yeah, they will. Most of them will be bad guys. I'm okay with that. If I got to make a choice between a family or bad guys, I take bad guys. Not just that. Now they can focus just on those guys. It'll be better getting those guys. In the Ellis Islands, we check people. Do they have diseases, or do they have ties to the cartels, or insert thing here, whatever we decide our professionals are the right answer. Then we give them temporary work visas. Not green cards, not citizenship. Temporary work visas. Now, a lot of people didn't like DACA. They had problems with DACA. And there were some problems with DACA. But there were some really good things about DACA also. Number one was you had to check in every 2 years. Great idea. Let's keep that. The person gets a 2-year work visa and they have to check in every 2 years. If they don't check in, then they get deported. If they check in, life is good. When they check in, the second thing about DACA that was good is you couldn't get any form of public assistance. So when you check in, are you getting public assistance? You are, you're gone. You're not, you're working, whatever, life is good, keep going. When you start working and paying taxes and not getting public assistance, you are basically paying our country in taxes to work here. I'm okay with that. Okay, well, not just that. What if these people want to have a pathway to citizenship? You can create that if you want to. Every 2 years, you give them something to achieve. You have to learn English or understand our Constitution or insert thing here, pass test A or test B if you want to. And if you pass certain tests and certain benchmarks, you get closer to a green card. However long that is. Is that 5 years, 10 years? Let's make the rules. I'm fine with it. Some people don't want to have a green card. Some people don't want citizenship. They just want to work and go home. Awesome. Work your X number of years, go home. Life is good. Some of you want to stay and become citizens. Great. There's your pathway. It doesn't change anything else. It's not done by anybody except the Ellis Island personnel. So anyone who's come from other countries any other way is not affected. No one skips the line. None of that actually happens. As long as you're good, you're good. Now, will everyone go to Ellis Islands? Of course not. There are give or take 10 million people who are undocumented in our country. That's an approximate number. For the sake of argument, we say 10 million. Say only 500,000. That's it. Only 500,000. 5% decide to go to the Ellis Islands. They go. They pack up and they go over there. And they go. They get the paperwork. They come back. Now they're legal. Once they come back and they're legal, they will show the others that they're legal and say, see, I'm legal. Now, if my boss exploits me, I can sue him. Now I can get actually a fair wage. Now, if bad guy Pablo wants to blackmail me, I can call the cops. Oh my God, life is so much better for me. Other people will say, I want that too. And then they will come back. And eventually, over time, we will document the vast majority of our undocumented population. That will happen over time. Is that 1 year or 10 years? I don't know. But it will eventually happen. But it's the best part. There's a lot of bad people in those 10 million. I don't know how many, but there's a lot of bad people there too. Of course there are. Right now, law enforcement can't actually get those people because they're in enclaves where everyone's undocumented. So they don't want to talk to the cops because they get deported. But once those people are legal, what do? The cops go by and say, hey, where's bad guy Pablo? There he is. Go get him, cops. Done. We obviously get the bad guys that are part of those 10 million, get rid of them, keep workers here. Life is good. How do we pay for it? Very simple. 2 private companies, not government, private-run companies that get paid based upon putting people to work. Oh my God, how can you do that? Very simple. It's called recruiting companies. They make tons of money now. Have them run the Ellis Islands. Not just that. There are literally farmers who are spending thousands of dollars right now to get workers to their farms. The hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, they're all spending tons of money to get illegal workers, undocumented workers, because they're cheap. I got an idea. Don't put that money in the black market. Instead, pay the Ellis Islands. That's how you fund it. You fund the entire thing without government dollars. You have a safer border, safer people, easier law enforcement. Bad guys get caught, and we fix the actual immigration problem over time. It's a long-term solution that actually works. Now, why am I the only guy who thought of this? Of course not. This is another one of those issues, which is a wedge issue that people use. You want to build a wall? I love you. You don't want to build a wall? I hate you. You hate the wall? I love you. You don't want the wall? I hate you. Very easy. Makes left versus right simple. Don't solve the problem. Retain the actual the wedge issue. I kind of went long on that one. I apologize.
No worries. So our next question, people are wondering, what are your thoughts on Yang and Yang books, the idea of giving people $1,000 a month?
Yeah, the UBI or universal concept. Well, Yang's versus what it originally was about. Yang's idea, his specific idea, is a terrible idea. And the reason why his specific idea is terrible, all it does is create more debt. I know he's saying that it will not. No evidence of that ever not happening. Government programs always, 100% of the time, create more debt, and become more entitlements. It's never not happened. If he's the one guy who can make that happen, I would happily be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope if he wins 5 years from now, I'll come back on here and go, wow, was I wrong? Yang was the first guy to make it happen. All hail Yang. I will absolutely say that'd be amazing. But I have a feeling he's going to be like everyone else. He's going to get corrupted, become nothing but another entitlement. It will change nothing but create more debt. The other taxes that he wants, I think, will be stopped immediately. Not going to happen. I'll just go into the general fund, as they always do. All these taxes are made for education, or taxes made for transport, or taxes made for infrastructure. Always wind up going to the general fund and getting sucked up in everything else. I think that will happen also. So I think his personal thing, while interesting, is not going to work at all. It isn't good enough to be forward. UBI's original idea, was not $1,000 a month. It was enough money for someone to survive on. Not thrive, but survive. That actual number would probably be somewhere, depending on where you live, between $3,000 and $4,000 a month. And that would be enough for an individual, not a family, to survive. You're not going to thrive on that money, but you can live on that money. And that was the goal. The goal was, no matter what, you could eat and have a roof over your head, which would allow you, if you wanted to have a job that you would love or want to be in, would keep wages low because you're trying to start new things, maybe start a business, stay longer in school. That was the concept. And in addition to that, the goal was, if everyone got it, meaning everyone, millionaire, billionaire, old, young, didn't matter, everyone gets it, all other forms of public assistance go away. No welfare of any type, no food stamps, no Social Security, no disability. No one gets anything except for your $3,500 a month or whatever that number is. And what would happen is the administration cost would be gone overnight. There's no need for a Social Security administration. There's no need for people to administer the ADA. Everybody gets no VA. Why you don't need to get a check? Nothing. Everyone gets that, and that's it. Now, in theory, that's amazing. In theory, oh my God, government bureaucracy is cut in half. Everyone's just getting the money. You save so much money in theory. In practice, what you're creating is an environment for people to not need to work, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think in the long run it becomes bad. And there are several reasons why I say this. Number one, if you had that happen, imagine a where decade after decade, a young person doesn't see their family go off to work. They don't see it. They have a culture of not working. You see that right now in some of the poorest communities. People who just get a check every month. And the family doesn't even know what it is to have a job. There's zero work ethic. They haven't seen it. It's not in their culture anymore. Wow, is that a problem? More importantly, you would find a group of people who would be the haves and the have-nots, right? People who were able to make lots of money and those who just don't want to and want to just survive. And you will watch people purposely trying to take advantage of them. You see that now already with things like payday loans, right? They're trying to get that check, right? So they get, oh, can I get a little extra money on my check now? Well, you know it. You've got a group of wealthy people who are going to be, certain people are going to be basically going to be like vultures, and they're going to try to do their best to suck up that cash. You see that begin to happen, right? You see already with payday loans already. You also see it with something else. People who get settlements. You find companies now trying to buy those settlements from them, right? So they're now mortgaging their future. So I think you'll find a lot of people on the UBI idea mortgaging their futures away for nothing, for a couple of bucks right now, so they can manage their payments. So I think UBI in the long run would be a disaster. Short run, it'd be amazing. I think long run, disaster.
All right. Our next question comes from Daddy Nomad. He asks, Larry, is being principled more important than being practical?
Why do you have to be either? I think I'm both. People disagree, but I think I'm both. Every single policy I've ever come up with, every one. No new taxes, no bigger government, more options, better service for the poor. Every single time, better service for the poor every single time. Yet, I don't seem to have anything that ever says, I've never said in anything I've ever done, I think at least, please correct me if I'm wrong, if someone knows it, hey, bigger government's good, less, more control is good. I don't think I've ever had a policy that said that. I think you can absolutely be both principled and practical.
All right. So for everyone in chat, this has been Larry Sharpe. We've got 2 hours scheduled. It's only about 10 minutes left. So at this point, if you got any more questions you want to ask, I'm going to prioritize the newest questions here. And if you want to ask it yourself, mark VC at the beginning. Garanor asks, how will we combat increasing amounts of automation in order to avoid unemployment?
Yeah, this is the absolute fault of our education system. It's not even close. It is. We have an education system that is an industrial world education system, and we are already in a post-industrialized world, and now it's getting even further into that. We sit our kids in school and have them take tests for 12 years. That's not how it works at all in reality, right? I say this all the time. I have kids when I do presentations in schools, whether high schools or colleges. I will often, if there's kids and parents in the room, I will say, students, do me a favor. If you share your homework and share all your, raise your hand. Don't worry. I know your parents are mad teacher here. Do it anyway. And almost the room goes up. They're sharing everything. They're sharing it on Discord like this. They're sharing it on their chats. They're sharing it all over the place. They're sharing it. And the school system's mad at them. No, it's your work. Do your own stuff. You get credit yourself. Parents, how can you do that? Because that's how the world works. When you get out in the real world, you don't sit in a factory and just make your widget all day long. All you do is share and compare and work together and collaborate. That's what it's all about. And if you can do one job very well, you're finished. That's what automation is all about. Doing one job very well consistently again and again and again. You're finished. That's exactly what's going to end you. I need you to collaborate. Think of this. I was talking about this like chess. When I was a kid, I played a lot of chess. And when I first came out, when I first came out as a chess player in the 70s, and when first came out the computer chess games, I could beat them when they first came out. I could beat the computer. Game. Now, no way. Right? What happened? Eventually, the chess game got so good that it could beat the chess master. So what beats a computer now? Chess master and the computer. That happens in everything. As technology comes out, the people who work with the technology will be able to succeed. The people who can't fall. We've got to help them pick them up. Our society is not training our kids for this at all. I have to retrain people all the time. And look, I'm happy about it because that's how I make my money. But still, I shouldn't have to, right? I go into rooms and train people on leadership and marketing and growing their businesses, all these different things. These people are educated. They have MBAs. They should be teaching me. I don't have an advanced degree. I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology, and I teach business leaders because I understand the future. Look, even when it was the horse, what's better than a guy pulling a plow? A horse pulling a plow. What's better than a horse pulling a plow? A guy guiding the horse to where to pull the plow. That's how it works. We have to work with AI. If we don't work with AI, we're finished. If we got to fight AI, we're finished. I've had people tell me this all the time. They say, Larry, you got to ban those automatic cars, those driverless cars from New York State. Why? Well, because I'm a driver. Then why aren't you helping them to make a better car that you can be involved with it now? Why aren't you this dispatcher? Why aren't you helping them build it? Why aren't you telling them problems? Why aren't you being part of this? It's the only way. Driverless cars are coming. They're going to happen. So how do we fix it? Let's fix it.
All right. Next question comes from Mike. Mike, are you here?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, so I was wondering, would you rather fight a cheetah or a lion?
If I had to fight a cheetah or a lion, I think I would rather fight a cheetah because a cheetah is a sprinter and is skinny. So if I had to fight a cheetah, it's a sprinter, which means if I could hold off long enough to run out of gas, then I could snap a bone or two. Right? Snap an arm or leg, cheetah's finished. So I probably rather fight a cheetah, keep its neck at bay, hopefully I can hold on to it long enough. I fight a lion. The lion's twice as strong, a whole lot more everything. The lions, look, to reality, I got no shot against either of those two. But if that's all I got, I'm gonna pick cheetah. The cheetah doesn't have the stamina or the strength that a lion has.
Thank you.
All right. So next question we have is from Nikolai. Do you or have you played video games, and which one is your favorite?
Love video games. Been playing since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had an Intellivision. Those of you older may remember that. I also had a ColecoVision. These are two things that only geeks had. I also had a Commodore 64. For those who remember that. And a Commodore 128. I had both of those. So I played computer games all the time. I happen to like strategy gaming tremendously. I don't spend that much time on video games now. I'm so damn busy, but I love them. My favorite video game now is the Civilization. I played the board game Civilization when I was younger, a while, and I love Civilization 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and even now 6. I actually prefer 5 over 6. 6 is the first time that I did not like a Civilization game. Was 6 was the first time I said it didn't get better. Every other time I thought it got better, except for 6.
I have the exact same opinion on that. Like, I was surprised with 6.
Yes.
So we got time for one more question here. What are your thoughts on the death penalty?
I am in theory and practice, two separate things. In theory, I'm not against theoretically someone being so horrible that the only answer to save everyone from his or her horribleness is for society to agree to have the. In theory. In practice, I am 100% against death penalty. No death penalty. No. I do not trust government or the people who we are or the humans that we are decide who is guilty and not, and decide who should die or not. Death is permanent. If we put him in jail, at least if they're wrong, they can get a second chance at life. If we're wrong, and we've been wrong far too much, in practice, I'm 100% against death penalty.
All right. Larry Sharpe, thanks for coming out. I've enjoyed this. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure those here have really appreciated it. For anyone here who's interested in learning more about Larry Sharpe and his campaigns, if you look in announcements a little bit earlier, we had a link to one of his campaign pages, and I've just posted his Twitter and Facebook accounts. Are there anything else you'd like us to post here?
Please, if you want to, head over to The Sharpe Way, sharpeway.com, The Sharpe Way with Larry Sharpe Facebook page. That is my, it's every week I do a 2-hour podcast with live call-ins. I take live stuff all the time. I'm always doing events throughout New York State. So if you're in New York, you really have a good chance to see me someplace if you want to, and I'll take everything live. I did my entire campaign, no notes, Facebook Live to almost every event. I'm all about you knowing who I am. If I don't know an answer, I've told you there were a couple questions here I didn't have a good answer for. I'm honest in what I think. I put my policy together with what I think is the best answer for everyone involved.
All right. Once again, I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming out, Larry.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks, you too.